The Blackhawks are finally done with New York. Welcome to From Center Ice. My name is Courtney. I am back with a video about the Chicago Blackhawks, and that said Chicago Blackhawks team just finished up a 3-game series against 2 teams from New York. 2 of those 3 games were against the New York Rangers, and those 2 games sandwiched 1 game against the New York Islanders. And what a roller coaster those 3 games were. It all started Saturday night when the Chicago Blackhawks were at Madison Square Garden to take on the New York Rangers, and they opened the scoring in that game. Brandon Hagel knocked the puck out of the air and it went right to Patrick Kane, who had an open net to put it in. Of course, then the play was reviewed to make sure that it wasn't knocked down with a high stick. It wasn't. It was a good goal. It was a fun goal. And that was about the end of the fun from that game. Because after that goal, Artemi Panarin went on to have a 3-point game. And of course, that wasn't with the Chicago Blackhawks, since he was traded a few years ago to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, it was with the New York Rangers against his old team, and it always just hurts a lot more when one of your former players scores against you, especially one as loved as Artemi Panarin. He had 2 assists in the second period and then just had to get in the goal column himself and added a goal in the third period. That goal made the game 3-1. Thankfully, 18 minutes and 41 seconds into the third period, Alex DeBrincat decided to get on the board as well. That made the game 3-2, but it just was not enough. The Blackhawks failed to get the win Saturday night in New York. Then the day immediately following that game, the Blackhawks headed right on over to the brand new New York Islanders arena, where they faced the Islanders Sunday night. Brandon Hagel once again opened the scoring for the Chicago Blackhawks, but this time he had the goal himself instead of getting an assist on the goal. And it was on the power play. Not only do we all love Brandon Hagel goals, but we really love when he scores them on the power play. And then JG Padro scored a goal. But then Dylan Strome scored a goal. His second goal of the season. But then with less than 4 seconds left in the third period, Noah Dobson tied the game. So they went to overtime. Except I don't think anybody actually told the Islanders that the overtime period had started. I think that they still thought that there was an intermission like there is in the playoffs. But if they were attempting to play, then they had the strangest, most boring overtime tactic I have ever seen. Basically, they were playing to get to the shootout. Because whenever they had the puck, they didn't feel like attacking or getting any shots. They just skated it out of the zone back into their defensive zone and then just skated around a little bit, hoping not to lose the puck, but also not really hoping to score either. In fact, they had 0 shots in overtime compared to the Blackhawks having 2 shots in overtime. It was such a boring 5 minutes of hockey. I don't know if they were trying to make the Hawks fall asleep so then they could win it in the shootout or what, but I would be very happy never seeing another Islanders game go to overtime. So to the shootout they went. Marc-Andre Fleury made 3 stops in the shootout, 1 against Oliver Wahlstrom, 1 against Matthew Barzal, and 1 against Anthony Beauvillier. Semyon Varlamov only made 1 save in the shootout. That was against Captain Jonathan Toews. But in comes Patrick Kane, just slowing down, working the puck around, doing his Patrick Kane magic with the puck, and he just lobbed it over Varlamov's glove. It was so casual, it was almost hilarious, but it was a great shot and a great shootout goal, and that was the shootout winner for the Blackhawks. That gave Marc-Andre Fleury his 499th NHL win in his 899th game. So that brought us to Tuesday night's game in Chicago when they once again faced off against the New York Rangers. Marc-Andre Fleury appeared in his 900th NHL game. What an accomplishment. And he was shooting for his 500th NHL win. But instead, Artemi Panarin hit 500 NHL points and Marc-Andre Fleury did not hit 500 NHL wins because the Blackhawks lost 6-2. You know, I remember when this team used to actually try to help their teammates reach milestones. And if the Blackhawks were trying to help Marc-Andre Fleury hit 500 wins last night, I didn't see it. But By the end of the game, it wasn't Fleury's wins that mattered. It wasn't how many games he played that mattered. It wasn't even the hockey that mattered. But I will get to that because there were a few good points in this game that I would like to talk about first, and then we will move on. So unlike the previous two games against New York teams, the Blackhawks did not open the scoring in this one. The Rangers scored first. But the Blackhawks did get the next two goals. Erik Gustafsson tied the game with his first goal of the season. And then Kirby Dach, who had not scored in 17 straight games, finally got that monkey off of his back and made the game 2-1. That goal was assisted by Alex DeBrincat and Dylan Strome. But then the Rangers scored 5 unanswered goals and the Blackhawks lost 6-2. But here's what actually mattered about last night. In the second period, Jujhar Khaira took a high hit from Jacob Trouba, and that hit resulted in Khaira having to be stretchered off the ice. It was a really scary scene at the United Center. It looked like he was out when the initial hit happened, and then his head hit the ice. It was bad. It was scary. You could see the worry on his teammates' faces. You could see the worry on the Rangers' faces. Thankfully, the medical teams from the Blackhawks and the Rangers both got over to him quickly. They were able to get him onto the stretcher and off the ice. He made it to the hospital and he was released from the hospital this morning. Last night after the game, when the press was talking to Coach Derek King, he said that Jujhar Khaira was very responsive in the hospital. He was up, he was talking, they were doing lots of tests, and he does have a severe injury according to the release that the Blackhawks put out this morning. They did not specify, obviously it is in the head and or neck region, and there is no timeline on his return to play, and of course that doesn't matter at this point. It's his health that matters. Jujhar Khaira does have a history of concussions, which makes this a lot scarier, and I'm not going to sit here and villainize Jacob Trouba. It definitely didn't look like he intended to hurt Jujhar Khaira. He didn't leave his feet, but it did look like his elbow or upper arm made contact with Khaira's head first. It was the initial point of contact. People could go back and forth all day arguing about whether it was a clean hit or a dirty hit. It doesn't matter. What does matter is Jujhar Khaira was hit in the head. It knocked him out on the ice. He had to be stretchered off of the ice, had to be taken to the hospital, and he is now in concussion protocol. Like I said, thankfully he was released from the hospital. He is at home recovering. But when is enough going to be enough? Again, I don't believe that Jacob Trouba had any malicious intent with his hit. But on the other hand, it was a careless play. Jujhar Khaira was looking for the puck in his skates. His head was down briefly. He did look up. He saw Trouba coming, but it was obvious he was in a very vulnerable position, and Trouba just continued to truck through him with the hit. He didn't let up. It was careless, for lack of a better term. And I'm not here to entertain the argument that you need to keep your head up. And if you are one of those people that is just going to sit here and say that, please just reevaluate your life. Because a guy was knocked unconscious in a hockey game last night. And that is what matters, not your archaic arguments about how you always have to have your head up on the ice. You can never look down to try to look for the puck in your feet. Because if you don't look down and you lose the puck and it goes the other way and you give up an odd man rush, well, then you're the villain, aren't you? So which one is it? Do you want guys to find the puck and break it out and maybe get a scoring chance for your team? Or do you want them to always just keep their head up and maybe give up the puck the other way and you get scored on? If you say the last one, I know you're lying. I have heard enough of people saying he has to protect himself, he has to keep his head up. No, we are not going to blame the guy who was knocked out because he was trying to find a puck in his feet. If you see somebody in a vulnerable position, maybe let up on your hit and don't just truck right on through them. But I said I wasn't going to villainize Jacob Trouba, and I'm not. It's not his fault. It's the fault of the NHL. It's the fault of the Department of Player Safety. It's the fault of the NHLPA. When are you going to start caring about your players. How many players or alumni do you want to see die young because of traumatic brain injuries? Because right now you're showing the world that you don't care, you've never cared, and you continue to not care. Why is that? Well, Jacob Trouba wasn't given a penalty on the play, and that was the right call by the officials because in the NHL that's not a penalty. And he wasn't given any discipline after the game because you know what? Jujhar Khaira should have kept his head up. Jacob Trouba didn't launch into the hit. He didn't leave his feet. Obviously, it is a clean and legal hit, and we're not going to do anything about it, even though the head was the principal point of contact and he was knocked unconscious. That wasn't Jacob Trouba's fault. It is the fault of the league and all of these groups who allow players to keep getting repeatedly hit in the head with nothing happening. I don't care how clean or legal a hit is. If the NHL really cared, then every single hit that was a hit to the head would be a major penalty, full stop. Because there's no other way to get that out of the game or have your players think for an extra second that maybe they should let up on their hits. But if you hit a guy in the head and you have to sit in the box for 5 minutes, no matter what, you're gonna think about it a little harder. And if you're gonna sit there and say that's gonna make the game too soft, I don't care. What I care about is these guys' health, their brain health, their health after they leave hockey is way more important than your entertainment or my entertainment. But the NHL does not care. The Department of Player Safety does not care. They didn't suspend Jacob Trouba for that hit. Guess what he did tonight? He did it again to Nathan MacKinnon. Thankfully, MacKinnon wasn't knocked out, but he did have to leave the game and go into concussion protocol. On the same type of hit, Nathan MacKinnon was looking down, finding the puck. Jacob Trouba came in with his elbow kinda high. It would have been considered a clean or legal hit by NHL standards, but now he might be concussed. The same guy doing the same thing 2 nights in a row because he faced absolutely nothing for doing it the first night. So of course you could just run through players and injure them because you're not gonna get any discipline. This is what I mean. It is the fault of the league and all of the organizations that are supposed to be there to keep the players safe. They don't. There's zero consistency. Even better, the Department of Player Safety did suspend Jason Spezza for 6 games for kneeing Neil Pionk in the head. The NHLPA is appealing that suspension. Sure, Jason Spezza isn't known as a dirty player. I believe I read it's his first time being suspended in his career. But he kneed a guy in the head. He injured another NHL player. But the Players Association is appealing that suspension. What are you for? What does the NHLPA exist to do? Because they don't protect players. This is where the issue lies. Guys are going to keep getting stretchered off the ice. They are going to keep getting knocked out because these so-called legal hits are legal and they don't get disciplined for them. So what do you do in a game? You do anything to have a competitive advantage. And sometimes that involves hitting a guy. But if you know that you're not leaving your feet and what you are doing is going to be considered a legal hit, no matter if you might hit his head first, what's gonna stop you from doing it? Nothing. And that's why we see what we have these past 2 nights. The NHL, plain and simple, does not care about their players. They care about one thing, and that is making money. And with every single day that goes by, it is proven to us fans time and time again that hockey may be the best game on the planet, but the NHL may possibly be the worst league on the planet. I am sure they have some stiff competition because any sports league only cares about making money. And it's just beyond gross. As if we weren't already struggling enough rooting for the Chicago Blackhawks after everything that happened, now let's think about how messed up the entire league is. Isn't this fun, guys? But this is a video about said Chicago Blackhawks, and they have another game tomorrow night against the Montreal Canadiens. And I happen to have 3 questions for that game, so we're gonna jump into those right now. Question 1. Can the Blackhawks play with some urgency? This is what has killed them, or has nearly killed them, in the past 3 games that they've played. They managed to win one of them in the shootout, thankfully, but then the other 2 they lost in regulation, and it's because they had 0 urgency in their game. In that first game against the Rangers were on the second half of a back-to-back, but it sure looked like the Blackhawks were the team coming off of a game the night prior. And yesterday, I'm not really going to sit here and blame them for what happened after the second period, because I still don't know how or why teams are expected to just continue playing a game after you see one of your teammates stretchered off of the ice. But before that, they also lacked a lot of urgency. So if they would like to win tomorrow night against a team who has struggled a lot this season, I would say coming out with some urgency would be a good thing. Question 2. Can the Blackhawks score on the power play? Saturday night against the New York Rangers, the Blackhawks went 0 for 1 on the power play. Sunday against the Islanders, the Hawks went 1 for 2 on the power play. Congratulations, you scored a power play goal. Thank you, Brandon Hagel. And hey, they won that game. Last night against the New York Rangers, the Blackhawks went 0 for 4 on the power play. And that was the difference in that game. If they had scored on maybe any of those power plays, even one, the game could have been completely different. But instead, they went back to not doing anything. So, can the Blackhawks score on the power play against the Montreal Canadiens? We shall see. Question 3. Can the Blackhawks stay out of the box? Yay, 2 questions about special teams. The Blackhawks gave the Rangers 2 power plays last night. The Blackhawks allowed 2 power play goals to the Rangers last night, meanwhile not scoring on 4 of their own chances. So if they are going to say no to question number 2 and not score on their own power plays, can they at least stay out of the box? That would be great. So those are my questions for tomorrow night's game against the Montreal Canadiens. How are you feeling about this Blackhawks team as a whole right now? Please let me know down in the comments. And like I said earlier, what matters the most right now is Jujhar Khaira. We hope that he is doing well. All of our thoughts are with him and his family. But that is all from me in this one. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do that, and throw a like at this video, because that would make me very happy. All of that being said, thank you guys so very much for tuning in, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye guys.